Mr. Mayor, I've been meeting with people in the community, helping me to put together a list of questions.
Great.
There are some softballs here, and there are some tough questions.
I'm ready.
Good. First question. In a single word, describe your first year as mayor.
Eventful. It's probably my first word that comes to mind.
Okay. If you were writing a headline that describes your first year, what would that say?
I would say mayor makes historic progress on toughest problems. I think that's what we've tried to focus on this year. Obviously, we came in with a focus on homelessness, which is the city's biggest challenge that voters elected us to take on. I think we've taken courageous action and delivered historic results there. And then we inherited a crisis around newcomers that were coming, 30,000 here just since I took the oath of office. And that required a separate set of responses to get us through that, and feel like we have ended in a place where now people are connected to services and are at work, and we've closed down our shelter system, and people are successfully integrating into the community, and that feels like a win-win.
A year ago, after you were sworn in, you got a warm welcome from the audience, and your first thing you said was, "I've done nothing yet." Right?
That's true.
Now a year has passed. What's the most significant accomplishment?
I think the most significant accomplishment is we took on what seemed like Denver's toughest problem, and we delivered a great first result, which is moving now more than 1,600 people who are on the streets of this city off of the streets and into transitional housing. And at the same time, closing encampments all over the city, so that now, for the first time in all of downtown Denver, there's not a single tent or an encampment. I mean, a year ago, you may remember, we had hospitals people couldn't get into because they were aligned with encampments. We had post offices people couldn't get access to because they had 100, 200 tent encampments around them. And so people didn't feel safe to come back to the city center again. I think now, for the first time, you could walk through any section of downtown Denver and there's not a single tent there. And those 1,600 people are now in transitional housing, getting services, getting their lives back together. I think that's a transformational change for the city, and one we're really proud of.
We're going to look back, also look ahead. In 30 seconds or less, your top 3 goals for this next year.
Yeah, top one is we want to make sure that we keep Denver affordable for every working family. We know right now Denver's becoming too expensive too fast, and so we want to focus on affordable housing for working families. That's why we're talking about a ballot measure for this November. Second one is we want to really drive the revival of downtown. Downtown is everyone's living room, and we want to make sure that we get the 16th Street Mall reopened. We get our Downtown Denver Authority up and running so we can activate and elevate the experience of downtown. And we want to continue to focus our efforts on safety to make sure we make this the safest big city in America. We're going to be all over all 3 of those for the next year.
Close to 30 seconds, I'll give you that. You were elected with experience as a legislator and an educator. Now you sit there a year later. What was the most significant challenge or learning curve in running a city as a mayor?
I mean, I had been a CEO before this of a foundation, and so had run other large operations, but I think the biggest adjustment is getting used to having a team of 13,000 employees that you work with 27 agencies that touch every part of the city. And so it's not like a normal job where you walk in on day one and go to the conference room and meet everybody. It takes all year to meet all 13,000 of our staff, and I haven't met all of them yet. So I think for me, it's just been getting to know the complexity and the commitment and the creativity of all of the staff we have in all of these agencies, and what I can do to help make their jobs easier and to make us deliver better results for residents.
So we good? Softballs are behind us, ready for the tough ones?
I'm ready. I thought those were the hard ones. Those are the easy ones.
Talked to several city workers.
Yes.
And they have dealt with the budget cuts.
Yes.
They've said the fat is gone, it's down to the bone.
Yes.
They said they're tired of hearing do more with less. What do you say to those that flat out say morale is not as good as it should be?
It's been a hard year, and so I don't doubt that. We've all been through some real stress, and particularly we know when you look at how we solved welcoming 30,000 migrants to this city without a budget or knowledge of that coming, it was because city workers went above and beyond to take whatever job they were supposed to be doing and added this whole new job where they needed to help intake people or connect them to housing or connect them to services or connect them to legal supports. And so we had to stand up legal clinics in the web atrium. I mean, it was sometimes you can't plan for or know that a crisis is coming. It arrives and you have to respond to it. So they've done a heroic job. I'm quick to thank and recognize the city employees who've put the city on their back over the last year. And I agree with them. We don't want budget cuts to be a permanent function of the city, but we have to make sure when a crisis arrives on your doorsteps, you can solve it. And so we've done that. We were very proud of the fact that we really changed course on our migrant services. We closed our hotel system, which was much more expensive, moved people into apartments. We shortened the length of stays, and that saved us about $90 million of what would have been budget cuts. And so I think most of the times when I talked to departments, they were very excited that the cuts we thought we might have had to make, we didn't have to make because of the change in this program, because we've reduced the number of folks that need services. And so that's been a real success for us, but it has for sure been a taxing year.
On the issue of financial stability, after having to spend an unprecedented amount on housing and homelessness, unexpected expenses, how would you assess Denver's financial stability right now?
Yeah, I think Denver is in a strong financial shape. We have been thoughtful and taken care of the resources we have. We knew this was an unusual year where we had a lot of federal surplus dollars that were available for us to use just this year. So a lot of the investments we made in homelessness this year were in infrastructure. They were in setting up the 8 different sites we have around the city. You know, we brought on 1,200 units we now have to move people off the streets and into housing. And those will be there for us to use long term. So those were one-time costs to use one-time federal dollars. That's the way we wanted to use them. But long term, we're prepared to have an operations budget that we can manage and support to deliver outcomes. I think we got to keep an eye on macroeconomics. We know there's some softening in the sales tax returns regionally, and so we want to keep an eye on what the revenues are going to be. But structurally, we're sound. We know what we need to spend, and we know what it costs. We just have to now figure out what the revenues are that will be generated. And we think that's a key sign that we want to work on that too. The reason why we care about economic recovery is the way you drive stronger revenues to a city is you have more people opening businesses and running businesses successfully. And so we want to be the city where that's easy to do that.
To your approval rating, 55% of voters last year said they wanted you in this office. Recent polls show 43-48%. What do those say, if anything?
Yeah, we've actually, I think those show that they're not representative samples, but I think there are 3 or 4 polls out now that have us at 60 or 62 or 66% or 58%. And so I think that support is strong. And I think that's particularly compelling when you look at the year that we've had. You know, it is often, if you were to say on year one, the best strategy to make yourself popular in the next year would not be to say we're going to, in an unprecedented way, open 8 new transitional housing sites for homeless individuals in 8 neighborhoods. I mean, there was one effort to do that in the 3 years before us that resulted in massive litigation and community fights, and that was only to house 40 people. We knew if we were going to do that for 1,200 people, it would have a lot of hard conversations, but we did those. I mean, I did 60 town halls personally myself through last fall to talk to communities, get that feedback, modify our plans, and make sure we delivered what they wanted. Neighborhoods where we had 1,000 people show up at town halls 4 months ago, I have one last month and there's 12 people because they all feel good about where we've ended up. So
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I know I've got a lot to go through, and I think we have that. I want to go to sales tax.
Great. That's right. Go ahead.
Okay. Denver voters have historically approved sales tax increases.
Yes.
By all indications, you're asking for 2 in November. It's going to bring sales tax in Denver up to almost 10%. Could you be asking for too much?
Our focus is on solving the single biggest problem in Denver, which is can people still afford to live in Denver? And we know if you do nothing, the city will continue to become more and more unaffordable. Right now, we have one of the fastest increasing housing markets of any in the country. If we do nothing, we will end up like San Francisco, where you got to be able to afford a $2 million home to live in the city. We don't want that. And so to stop that, we got to be able to build the number of units we need that are affordable. To solve that gap, we need to build up 45,000 units. This ballot measure would put us on a path to actually do that. And it's important that is an impact of about $2 a week on a Denver family. It's important to know that groceries, this does not apply to groceries, does not apply to gas, does not apply to medicine or medical supplies. So we think to be able to take a teacher who's not going to be able to stay in the city and drop their rent by $800 or $1,000 a month in order for me to pay $2 more a week on retail sales taxes, we think that's a good trade for the city.
Are you concerned about the potential impact a nearly 10% sales tax could have on big purchases, cars and other large ticket items, maybe people going across the border to make those purchases? Have you considered that?
We will always consider it. We look carefully at it. I think we're open to looking at all of the existing sales taxes that have been added over the decades and see if those are all things we still need to keep in place. But the benefit is we look at our tax burden compared to the rest of the state and our tax burden across all sources. When you talk about your experience of tax in the city, it's not just sales tax, it's what you pay on income, what you pay on sales, what you pay on property. We are still among the lowest overall tax burdens of major cities in the country, even with this addition. And so we don't think it significantly changes people's behavior. We've seen that from evidence in the past when there have been sales tax increases. So we think this can both help spur business and help protect Denverites, because what we know is a business that might be worried about the sales tax is more worried about whether or not their employee will still keep coming to work tomorrow if they can't afford the rent.
2 items on the sales tax, right? Housing and Denver Health. Yes. Are you concerned one could pass and the other couldn't? And if Denver Health doesn't, what could that mean for the hospital's future?
You know, we have strong support for both of these measures. We have been in close partnership with Denver Health around their work. We know that they have uncompensated care they need to support. We think they're making that case powerfully to the public. And that helps us long term. Obviously, they need support from the city. We want to provide it. We can't provide the scale of support they'll need to fix the gap that they have. And so we think this is a place where Denverites are going to say the 2 most important things to us are affordable housing and quality health care. And we think those are the 2 questions on the ballot. This will be the first time in Denver history voters have gotten to weigh in on the question of affordable housing. And they tell us over and over and over again that's the single most important thing for them.
Denver Health. Recent reports show in 2022, Denver Health provided $260 million in uncompensated care. Nationwide, there's a growing number of hospitals in default. How concerned are you that Denver Health may be headed down that road?
Oh, I'm certainly concerned about the financial stability of Denver Health, and they are too. That's why they're working on it together. There are a number of things we can do. One is, we want Denver Health is the only real safety net hospital on the Front Range. So that means you have people that come from other counties, other cities that all come to Denver. We need those cities and regions in the state to help pay their fair share of those costs. We want more and more folks like me to get their health care at Denver Health, because the more paying customers we have who use their insurance and come to Denver Health, that helps support the bottom line also. And we want to be able to have the right public support to keep it as a place where you can go in a moment of emergency. I mean, there's a woman who runs a fancy financial services firm downtown who fainted in the middle of work and fell down and cracked her head open on the concrete floor. And were it not for the Denver Health ambulance that got there in time, got her to the emergency room in time, and got her care in time, she would have left 2 kids as orphans that day. You never know when you're going to need Denver Health, but the moments that you do is the moment that it's the most important, and we want to make sure they're there.
Let's go to the future of downtown. Sources tell us there are 6 major buildings in downtown currently in default. Vacancy rates continue to soar. What are you planning to do in your next year to revitalize what appears to be a struggling downtown?
Yeah, we're going to launch the most ambitious effort in Denver history to revive downtown. Our plan for the Downtown Denver Authority would expand about $500 million we could invest in downtown without increasing taxes. It would draw money from the local Union Station Improvement District. Those residences right around Union Station will have a chance to vote on that this November. And that allows us to do things like take vacant commercial buildings and convert them into apartments that can be affordable for the servers and the janitors that are working downtown, as well as new arrivals. We also want to be able to focus on attracting and keeping really vibrant businesses in downtown. We're going to work hard to reopen the 16th Street Mall. You can see the map of it behind you, which is what I focus on every day, making sure we have the right retailers and the right blocks to create a really unique experience you can only find in Denver. We're focusing on activations, whether it is mariachi bands and art installations and open beer halls to be able to invite people to come back to downtown. So what I think they're going to find is this is a totally different downtown than they saw a year or 2 ago.
Let me move to Denver Police. You set a goal of adding 167 police officers this year. Will you make that goal? And if not, why not?
We are still on path, we think, to make that goal. The challenge is we're trying to help make our systems for recruiting and onboarding officers faster, more efficient, more equitable. We know that right now it can be 5 or 6 times longer to become an officer in Denver than it is in one of the neighboring jurisdictions, because our system just takes too long. So we want it to be fair and equitable and streamlined, and we want to be able to get people that represent the communities that they serve. And so we're working on both of those things. Chief Thomas done a great job. We think we're going to be on path for a historic expansion of the police force this year.
Sources within the police department say retention rates are down. The first academy only had 37 people. What can you do as mayor to make it more attractive to stay as a Denver cop or become a Denver police officer?
Yeah, I think we want to make this a great place to work, and that means knowing that we will support you. One thing is I find in every community I go to right now, I'll hear the same question, which is they'll say, why don't I see more officers in my neighborhood? I'd like to see them. I want to have them be present. And so one of the things we're launching this year is we're doing, yes, hotspot policing, where we'll have officers stop by places where we've had historically high levels of crime to help drop the rates of crime. We're also doing what we call trust patrols, which is having officers just stop by a business or a park or a rec center, walk in, talk to residents, ask them what's going well, what we can do better. We think rebuilding that community trust is a really important part of public safety, and we're going to do both. And we know that makes community members happier. It also makes officers happier. They like their job when people know them, see them as a resource, and reach out for help.
Got several more to get through, so I'd like to go rapid fire if we can, okay? Change was made at the top of the Denver Civil Service Commission, but so far no change in the process of getting more officers on the street. Do you intend to push for change to update that hiring process?
I think obviously the board members of the commission make that decision. I know the safety team, and we would like to see that process get faster and simpler, and we hope they do that.
Denver City Council, 6 new members were sworn in with you a year ago. How would you grade the entire City Council's performance in the first year?
Oh, I think we have a very productive partnership with the City Council. I feel like we've been able to get a lot done and get it done together. So I really enjoy working with them. They reach out, and if we have difficulties or differences, we solve them. And I think that President Torres has been a great partner, as is the incoming President Sandoval. So I love working with them.
Sanctuary city. Denver became a sanctuary city in 2017 with the costs associated with an estimated 30,000 plus or 40,000 plus migrants that came to the city this past year. Can Denver economically survive and sustain as a sanctuary city moving forward?
We can. Every city that has bet on being pro-immigration over the last 200 years in this country has won, because that is how you build this country. We know we have thousands of open jobs here we can't fill. The only problem we need to solve is the folks that have arrived, helping them get access to work. And that's where we wanted the federal government's help. Without their help, we found a path on our own. So now those folks are getting trained, they're getting jobs, they're paying taxes, they're supporting the economy. That's what we want them to do.
3 weeks ago, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that cities can enforce laws to prohibit homeless people from camping on public property, even when there is no shelter available. How do you plan to respond to that ruling?
It doesn't change our strategy. Our strategy has been that enforcing a camping ban to move someone from one block to the next doesn't solve the problem. It just moves it from one person's front door to another person's front door. What we've done in Denver is the way you solve that problem is you close those encampments by moving people to housing. That's how we've closed more than 16 of the city's largest encampments. There are no major encampments left in the city now because of that. So that strategy works for us. We will keep doing that, and we think we can do that at scale successfully.
Police and response time. Sources tell us the addition of the 8 transitional housing sites has had a significant. Sources tell us the addition of the 8 new transitional housing sites has had a significant impact on police and fire resources and response times. Do you have a plan in the next year to address these concerns?
We do. First of all, it's reduced the total number of 911 calls citywide to encampments and to tents. It's just that we've moved those people to concentrated locations where they get services. We do have places where we know there are needs. We put up a new med unit at our fire station, out Station 26 on the east side. So that's a small, nimble team that can respond quickly without having to send a complete engine or a truck out to those sites. And we know the places that have high demands for need, we're doing more preventative work to have medical care and treatment there on a regular basis, so you don't have to call 911 for medical care. We know we can get you nurses and doctors to come in to see you regularly.
I want to move to national politics for a second. We all know what happened in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes.
This week, New York Times and others calling for political unity. What's your viewpoint, your vantage point, your message on this change after what happened last Saturday?
Yeah, what I love about this job is that it's nonpartisan and it's people that just want to solve problems. I think that's what people are hungry for at the federal level is, can we have a government that will just work together to solve hard problems? And I've never been more optimistic about what Denver can do on this. You find people of all ideological stripes, all backgrounds who say, yeah, we want this city to be safer, what can we do? Yeah, we want this place to be affordable, what can we do? We want it to have vibrant businesses, what can we do? And so I think what we see ourselves as is an outpost here in Denver where we can show that good people can come together and solve hard problems still, no matter what you believe. And there's nothing too big to solve. People would have thought homelessness or federal immigration reform seemed like unsolvable problems. We think they're not, if you focus on what we agree on and what we can do together. And for me, that's a source of inspiration here.
Final question. If you could change any one thing you did in this past year, what would it be and why?
The first one that comes to mind is, I think, when we had a few of our sites opened, we needed to have more rigorous safety protections in place the day that we opened. I think there was a trade-off of people not being sure if it would make the sites feel too security driven, if we had more officers or more presence or more metal detectors, and they wanted it to feel like home. We also wanted it to feel safe. I think we should have from day one made sure that those sites had all those protections on day one. We've put those in place now. We've made the site safer. That was the right decision. But if I had that back to do over again, I would.
What will be the focus of your message on Monday?
It will be that Denver is a city on the rise. This is a place where we weathered very hard problems and we came through stronger because we found out that these problems are solvable and we are the ones that can solve them. We've had a great start. We got more work to do. We got to make this a more vibrant city, a more affordable city, a more safe city. And we think we can really do that with everybody working shoulder to shoulder.
So you got the softballs and the hardballs.
I survived. No pitches to the face.